Leo was a very talented watchmaker who inherited his father's small but respected shop, a place filled with ticking clocks, polished brass tools, and years of quiet craftsmanship. People in the town remembered his father as a disciplined man who never missed a day of work, no matter how small or repetitive the task was. Leo, however, was different. He had skill, perhaps even more natural talent than his father, but he lacked consistency. He believed he was meant for something greater than ordinary repairs. In his mind, fixing simple watches and clocks was boring work far beneath his potential. He only worked when he felt motivated, when some exciting idea or challenge sparked his interest. Because of this habit, he often ignored regular customers, telling them to come back later while he waited for something worthy of his talent. At first, people were patient out of respect for his father, but slowly they stopped coming. The shop began to lose its life. The ticking sounds grew fewer. The shelves gathered dust, and Leo found himself sitting idle more often than working. Still, he convinced himself that he was just waiting for the right opportunity. One day, that opportunity seemed to arrive. An old man entered the shop carrying a large, worn-out grandfather clock. It looked ancient, with cracked glass and faded wood, and it had clearly not worked for years. The old man explained that he had taken the clock to many watchmakers, but none could repair it. Hearing this, Leo felt a surge of excitement. This was exactly the kind of challenge he had been waiting for: complex, rare, and meaningful. Without hesitation, he accepted the job, confident that he would succeed where others had failed. For the first few days, Leo worked with intense focus. He carefully opened the clock and discovered a complicated system of gears, springs, and tiny parts, far more intricate than anything he had handled before. At first, this complexity excited him. He stayed up late, driven by motivation, believing he was finally doing something extraordinary. But as the days passed, the reality of the work began to settle in. The repair was not glamorous or exciting. It was slow, repetitive, and extremely detailed. Each tiny piece had to be cleaned, inspected, and tested. Hours of effort produced almost no visible progress. The excitement faded, motivation disappeared. What remained was boredom and frustration. Leo began to lose interest. He grew irritated with the work, feeling that it was draining his energy rather than inspiring him. After about a week, he stopped working on the clock altogether. It sat on his table, half disassembled, just like many other unfinished tasks in his life. Leo leaned back and questioned everything. Maybe he wasn't meant to run the shop. Maybe his father had been different in a way he could never match. Feeling defeated, he decided he might as well close the shop and move on. Before doing so, he started going through his father's old belongings. In a dusty drawer, he found a collection of notebooks, his father's work journals. Curious, Leo opened one, expecting to find brilliant ideas, clever techniques, or notes about inspiration and passion. Instead, he found something surprisingly simple. The pages were filled with short, plain entries, small repairs, routine tasks, everyday work. There was nothing extraordinary about them, no sign of sudden genius or bursts of motivation, just consistent effort day after day. As Leo continued reading, one sentence caught his attention and stopped him completely. A man who works only when he is inspired will be a man of many beginnings and no endings. Leo sat there in silence, staring at the words. They felt true in a way he couldn't ignore. He realized that his father's greatness had not come from waiting for motivation, but from showing up every single day, regardless of how he felt. That realization changed something inside him. The next morning, Leo made a simple decision. He would not wait for motivation anymore. Instead, he set a rule for himself. He would work on the grandfather clock for 4 hours every morning, no matter how bored or frustrated he felt. The first few days were difficult. He felt no excitement, no passion, only resistance. Every minute felt heavy, and his mind constantly told him to stop. But he continued anyway. Day after day, he showed up and did the work. Slowly, something began to change. The boredom became easier to handle. The frustration became quieter. He stopped focusing on how he felt and started focusing on what needed to be done. One small step at a time, he worked through the clock. After 3 weeks of steady effort, Leo discovered the problem: a tiny bent tooth on one of the gears. It was so small that it was almost invisible, yet it was enough to stop the entire mechanism. Carefully, he fixed it, reassembled the clock, and gave the pendulum a gentle push. The clock began to tick again, steady and alive. When the old man returned and saw the clock working, he was overwhelmed with emotion. But for Leo, the real victory was not just fixing the clock, it was understanding the value of discipline. His shop slowly came back to life as customers returned, but more importantly, Leo himself had changed. He no longer waited for motivation. He worked consistently whether he felt like it or not. And in doing so, he not only restored the clocks in his shop, but also rebuilt his own mindset and future.